You're still on the JoyNews channel. Good afternoon and welcome to JoyNews Today. I am Apita CBD. In our headlines today, architects of the 1981 December 31 revolution commemorate the 38th anniversary of the political revolt they say was meant to transform the social and economic order of this country. We're live at the Winneba Lorry Station as former President Rawlings joined by 2020 flag bearer of the NDC led scores of party stalwarts to mark the day. Also, President Akufo-Addo addresses Global Black Economic Forum, urging blacks around the world to work hard to achieve excellence everywhere. Managers of Cape Coast and Elmina castles want Year of Return commemorated annually following its successful organization and patronage. And in business, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta outlines focus of 2020 budget as he prepares to present the estimates to Parliament in 2 weeks. I'm Apita CBD. This is JoyNews Today. We'll be back with more. We also have sports and more in this hour. Please stay. Thank you so much for your company. Now, a former Chief of Defence Staff of the Armed Forces, Brigadier General Nunu Mensah Retire, is warning that Ghana's peace and security faces an imminent threat: graduate unemployment. He says the two main political parties, the NPP and the NDC, have so far not dealt with the matter decisively. He wants the parties to fall on technocrats who can deal with the matter. And he's been speaking at the commemoration of the 31st December revolution at Winneba. Other speakers such as Mike Hammer and Kweku Rekatia Hagen have also been addressing the gathering. Let's take you there for more.
Party members, citizens of Winneba, let me extend my heartiest congratulations today on the 38th anniversary of the 31st December revolution to the former President of the Republic of Ghana and leader of the revolution, His Excellency Jerry Rawlings, and all the cadres, both living and dead, who sacrificed to make the revolution a success. This is a day of remembrance and it's a day of reflection, to reflect on the principles that were enshrined in the revolution and how those principles are being upheld in the life of our country today. The 31st December revolution was a pivotal moment in the history of our nation, and it was touted as the intervention that was going to lead to the end of all coups in Ghana. And indeed, it lived up to expectation, because after 31st December, there has been no intervention in the governance of our country up to date. And therefore, we have had a fourth republic that has endured for the last 27 years. And it is the 31st December revolution that gave birth to the fourth republic. Without the 31st December revolution laying the foundation for the fourth republic, we probably would not have a fourth republic to talk of today. And the fourth republic was established by the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution under the signature and seal of His Excellency Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings. The promulgation of this Constitution took place after Justice D.F. Annan, of blessed memory, who was the leader of the National Commission for Democracy, went around this country and crisscrossed the length and breadth of our nation to solicit the views from our people as to what nature of constitutional governance they would want. At the end of a very exhaustive exercise, they came with the determination that Ghanaians had opted for multi-party democracy. Subsequently, a consultative assembly was set up to draft the 1992 Constitution, and there are several of our cadres here and some of our party executives, Asiedun Ketia, who served in that consultative assembly. And they gave unto the nation the longest lasting constitution we have ever had in our history. Embedded in the 1992 Constitution was a phrase, and I remember that that phrase was very hotly debated. There were those who said it must not be included in the Constitution, and there were those who were solidly for it to be captured in the Constitution. And those words are probity and accountability. Eventually, probity and accountability won the day. And so if you open the 1992 Constitution today, you will see the principles of probity and accountability. And now those principles were meant to remind us of the values of the revolution and to remind us what had necessitated the revolution. And that is why today, in the Fourth Republican Constitution promulgated in 1992, we have the words probity and accountability. After the Constitution was promulgated, there was a lot of excitement. And people look forward to the return to constitutional governance. And the expectation was that the return to constitutional governance will speed up the transformation of our economy, and it will lead to more prosperity and improvement of lives for Ghanaians. I dare say that since 1992, there has been some progress in terms of our Human Development Index, in terms of access to healthcare, in terms of access to electric power, in terms of access to water, in terms of access to transport and other good things of life, education. But I must warn that there's a growing loss of faith in our democratic system. There's a loss of trust in the democratic leadership. The people of our nation are beginning to become despondent and believe that no matter what happens, there can be no significant transformation in their lives. And I believe that people like Justice Annan must be rolling in their graves if they were here today to see some of the things that are going on. They will not sleep in peace. This diminished trust in leadership and our democratic system is manifesting, one, in a sense of apathy. You go around the country and you speak to ordinary Ghanaians, and they ask you, what is the reason why I must vote? My vote counts for nothing. I have voted since 1992, and I don't see any significant change in my life. That's the first danger signal. The second danger signal, and that one I call a quid pro quo syndrome, is that he says, okay, I will vote, and I'll give you my political support, but I will auction it to the highest bidder, and I'll give you my support in exchange for material gain. Both these syndromes, that is apathy and exchange of political support for material favor, are a clear and present danger to our fledgling democracy. Monetization has made our politics more expensive and fuels the canker of corruption, as our General Secretary rightly said. But this is a direct response by our people to, one, the arrogance of power. When people get into political office, they forget where they came from. They forget that the mandate they have was given to them by the same ordinary people. The second is a lack of modesty and humility in public office. When one has been appointed to public office, they believe it's an entitlement and a right, and not that you serve at the pleasure of the people of Ghana. As our people observe their leaders living large, they believe also that the only means by which they can also have a fair share of the cake is to auction their political support to the highest bidder. The other fact is waste. As our people see their leaders waste the resources of the country, then they want to get a fair share of the cake. I cannot understand in heaven why we say we are moving towards a cashless economy. We say that you cannot clear more than 5,000 cedis off the counter because we want people to use less cash in transactions. And then at the same time, you go and print 100 Ghana cedi notes and 200 Ghana cedi notes. You cannot understand what reason in hell would make any government thinking logically do something like that. You want to make it easier for people to carry huge sums of cash when we say we are building a cashless society. And the worst thing is, I was reading in the news 2 days ago, and they say Ghana has declared support to join ECO next year in 2020. So if we're going to join the ECO and adopt the new West African money system, then what is the need to print 100 Ghana notes and 200 Ghana notes on the eve when you are going to join the ECO? Is it because somebody just wants to print the note so that he gets his kickback or his whatever, agent's fee or something? Because otherwise it doesn't make any logical sense. And even the system for introducing new notes was not gone through. The public was ambushed. One day we just got up, they said we're introducing new notes. No public sensitization. The banks received no notification, no public education, and suddenly it says start using 100 and 200 Ghana cedis. So definitely somebody takes it to a shop and he says, we don't know about this note. But that's not all. When you spend 62 million Ghana cedis in 9 months on foreign travel alone, 62 million Ghana cedis. And you come from wherever you traveled and you come back and you go back to the people on the ground and you say, vote for me. What will they tell you? The 62 million you chop, give me some before I vote for you. That is fueling monetization. When people indulge in corruption, or waste of resources, and you resort to clearing them without investigation, it fuels monetization. When you have a voters register that is only 7 years old, and you have a database valuably collected that costs you money to build, and then you say, I'm going to throw that database away and build a new database based on a new biometric register at 444 million Ghana cedis, when you could have upgraded the old system at a little over 200 million Ghana cedis. That is the kind of waste our people are angry with. And that is why when the politician goes back to them, they ask for their fair share of the cake. My brothers and sisters, the only means we can win back the trust of our people and minimize monetization in our politics is to uphold the revolutionary principles of probity and accountability. We must be prepared to be probed and to be accountable. But probity and accountability must work because the institutions to fight corruption are working. We cannot hobble the institutions of anti-corruption and expect that they will achieve results. You think that you have won the fight against corruption because you've appointed a special prosecutor. Meanwhile, you won't resource the office, and you have done the law in such a way that you have tied the hands of the special prosecutor so that he cannot prosecute anybody. And so the only way is to uphold the principles of probity and accountability. And in that regard, we must step up the fight against corruption. We must step up the fight against nepotism. We must strengthen, as General Mosquito said, our assets declaration regime so that people going into public office will declare their assets, and if possible, amend the Constitution so that those assets can be published. So that when they leave office, they have to declare their assets again, and we can make a comparison and see whether they have not enriched themselves at the expense of the people. A new NDC government will seek to review the law.
Former President John Dramani Mahama there, and he's touched on a few things. One of them is the new notes, and he's questioning why they were printed, saying that it defeats the purpose of a cashless society. And he also questions government spending 62 million cedis on foreign travels. He says that's what causes monetization, because voters will ask for their share. And he also says when you spend on voters register and you still want to do another one, that's what leads to monetization. And he says it's a waste people are angry with. But let's move on to other stories, because President Akufo-Addo says blacks around the world must work hard and excel in industry. He says Africans and Africans in the diaspora must have the vision of a continent that does not depend on aid. Africa receives millions of dollars from so-called bilateral donors to fund its budgets. President Akufo-Addo says it's time to change the narrative, and he was speaking at the Global Black Economic Forum at the Movenpick Ambassadors Hotel here in Accra.
Theme for this forum: Full Circle Entrepreneurship, Globalizing Community Conference, brings into sharp focus the next step of our journey in the years beyond the return. History tells us of the positive impact of diasporan communities on the growth and development of countries through increased trade activities, rising investments, and the transfer of skills and knowledge. I believe that beyond the remittances that you bring home, beyond participating in the year of return, you, our kith and kin in the African diaspora, have a crucial part to play towards the growth and development of Africa with a huge potential. Our continent is generally acknowledged to be the best endowed in the world. The great rivers of the world flow through our continent, and so do the lakes and the dramatic waterfalls. We have breathtaking deserts as well. We have minerals that the rest of the world would kill for, and all the minerals that are needed to run modern economies are in our continent. Indeed, 30% of the Earth's remaining minerals are in Africa. We have fertile lands, we have picturesque and captivating landscapes, and useful and interesting plants. And we're still home to what is left of the big animals on our planet. Today, Africa has the youngest population in the world, and we have the human resource that has provided the manpower for many civilizations. This is the background to the imperative need for the enhancement of Africa's capacity to be self-reliant. It should be obvious to all black people in the world by now that their dignity and standing are intricately bound up with the dignity and standing of Africa.
Still on the Black Economic Forum, President Akufo-Addo also spoke about the year of return, which he says is critical to helping blacks to better appreciate where they came from. He says some of Ghana's consulates around the world run out of visas as a result of the volume of applications.
It has meant that we've had a lot of visitors to Ghana, evidence in the shortage of visas in most of our embassies across the world, with the office of the Honorary Consulate General of Ghana in Houston, for example, publishing a non-issuance of visas on its website owing to the exhaustion of supply. Statistics from the Ministry of Tourism indicate that 200,000 more people took up the offer to return to the motherland. I'm told that by the end of the year, we're expecting to hit the magic figure of 1 million visitors. I want to thank you.
President Akufo-Addo there. Now, management of the Cape Coast and Elmina castles are wishing every year would be a year of return. The Cape Coast Castle, for instance, says it could record up to 100,000 visitors this year, a figure that has not been recorded before in history of the facility. They say they're sometimes overwhelmed with the numbers that come to the facility, but members of the diaspora community who have been visiting are asking government to put in place measures that could sustain the gains made so far. Bridget Kojanyako has more in the following report.
The Cape Coast and Elmina castles have been two twin facilities that have been huge beneficiaries in terms of the year of return.
The last one said that the woman that Mackley was going out with, he said the one was a beautiful.
Every minute, the facility welcomes a guest. Most of them have been African Americans, and they love the year of return.
It was really a beautiful sight to see so many African Americans returning, claiming what is rightfully theirs. Really been heart-wrenching. To be here to experience what our ancestors went through, it really makes you understand more what our history was about. I've been to Senegal, to Gorée Island, so I kind of knew what to expect. However, this was on a much larger scale. Senegal, Gorée Island is much smaller. But to think that people could be so inhuman, you know, putting hundreds of people in a small room with no air, no food, nowhere to relieve themselves. Monsters, just inhumane. So.
It's been unprecedented numbers recorded this year by the Cape Coast Castle. That's according to Atu Eshen, manager of the Cape Coast Castle. He reveals the facility could record up to 100,000 this year, a figure they have not realized before.
Extremely phenomenal. I mean, you think of numbers coming in. There has never been a year like this year in terms of African diaspora coming to visit. I mean, talk of the whole speaker of U.S. Congress coming down with all the African what do you call it? African congressmen, African American congressmen coming down. Talk of Steve Harvey coming in, Boris Kojo himself coming in. It's been amazing. Oh, absolutely.
Effective January 1, 2020, workers who turn 60 years will no longer receive lump sum payment from the State Pension Scheme Manager, SNIT. Instead, their respective private fund managers will take up that responsibility. The Social Security and National Insurance Trust will only be responsible for monthly pensions payment. And this is according to the Director General, Dr. Ofori Tenkwane. This came up during an engagement with the focal persons of the scheme in the Eastern Regional Capital, Koforidua. Kofi Sia was there and filed this report.
According to Dr. Ofori Tenkwane, the focal persons engagement is part of strategies to educate workers and other stakeholders on the need to access the product of SNIT and legal implications for employers who fail to pay benefits of their workers. The MD said the gathering will also cut the scheme's operational cost in ensuring compliance.
With the coming into force of the new Pensions Act, there was a 3-tier Pensions Act, which asked SNIT to basically concentrate on the Tier 1, which is the Tier 1 is the one that pays the monthly pensions, and then the lump sum portion that was electable, optionally electable under PNDC Law 247, was transferred to private fund managers, which we call the Tier 2 providers. So effective 1st January 2010, any member of the SNIT scheme who joined the scheme after that date, after the implementation date of the new act, they had only 13.5% of their money coming to SNIT, out of which 2.5% went to the NHIS, and SNIT kept only 11%. And in exchange for that, SNIT will pay the monthly pensions under the new act. And then the 5%, which heretofore then used to come to SNIT, was being ceded directly from the employer, right, to the Tier 2 fund manager. So for those people that joined the scheme after 1st January 2010, when they go on retirement sometime in the future, they just come to SNIT for their monthly pensions, and then they go to their Tier 2 provider for their lump sum.
Dr. Ofori Tenkwane in an interview said the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, will only be mandated to pay monthly benefits to pensioners. He says pensioners on the new pension scheme will access their lump sum payments from the managers of pension schemes other than the state pensions manager. The SNIT MD said the move is in fulfillment of a 10-year payment date spelled out in the laws establishing the 3-tier pension scheme.
Perhaps the selfish interest in it for us, and there's always going to be something in it for us, is that it is going to, if this works, it will help us cut down our operations cost in trying to enforce compliance. I've always said that, and I say this to my staff all the time. I want SNIT to get to the point where members will voluntarily want to give us their money. We don't have to go and chase them. If they get to the point where they see that if I do not contribute to the SNIT scheme, I am shortchanging myself, that I'm losing out on something, then...
You're still watching Joy News today here on the Joy News channel. Let's take you back to Winneba, where former President Jerry John Rawlings is speaking.
John Mahoma, my fellow comrades, distinguished guests, cadres, ladies and gentlemen, let me first express my gratitude to the chiefs, the Queen Mothers, and the people of Winneba for hosting us here today, and welcome all who have come from far and near to celebrate with us. Before I continue, ladies and gentlemen, I entered Winneba this morning, and as I looked around, some calmness began to descend on me. I felt at peace, at ease with the environment. I noticed how clean your environment, your streets were. It made me feel at ease and calm. And I mentioned it to Nana, the chief, to encourage us to always keep the environment clean. There is so much more money I believe we can make from the tourist industry if we will keep our environment clean and extend this cleanliness to the shores, the beautiful beaches of Winneba. Keep that in mind and clean up your environment, especially the beaches. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, many have today forgotten the circumstances that gave birth to June 4th, 1979 and 31st December 1981. And some have deliberately spent huge resources sponsoring a distortion of history based on outright lies or half-truths, and the rendition by cowards who ran away during those heady days. The sun is up. Some of you must be hungry. We'll have to get back home to feed our families. Today is 31st. In a few hours, we'll be crossing over into next year. If the sun wasn't so hot, I would share lots of interesting stories about June 4th with you, as well as 31st December. But we'll postpone it and do that another time. For now, let me simply say that some may not want to speak. Because a handful of warped minds full of hate and bitterness are being paid to distort and cover up events in our history with color stories and lies. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1979, Ghanaians had suffered years of abuse and corruption and sought natural justice to punish some of those who were responsible for the humiliating circumstances that we suffered. Ladies and gentlemen, it will shock you to know that before and during a Champong's regime, the banking sector, especially the Ghana Commercial Bank, was plunged into unimaginable corruption. The bank served as an avenue for cronies and a particular group of people to feed fat on taxpayers' money that were used to create the resources in these banks. They fed fat on loans without adequate collateral. These so-called entrepreneurs, fake, fancy entrepreneurs, took loans, half of it into businesses, and the other half just lived a good life and never paid back their loans. two other banking institutions, Barclays and Standard Bank, would give you a loan, and they would keep an eye on you and assist you to make sure what you intended to use the bank for, the money for, is used to enable you to succeed and pay back your loan, but not Ghana Commercial Bank. You would think that bank was created for a select group of people who take loans and hardly ever pay, till the bank would almost become bankrupt and would have to be refinanced, will have to be rebailed out, will have to be recapitalized. Ladies and gentlemen, Acheampong did a few good things. General Acheampong decided to investigate those who had been taking loans over the years, having a good time and not paying. What did he decide to do? He was going to investigate the Ghana Commercial Bank, publish and punish, make sure such people paid back their loans or the monies. And they call themselves entrepreneurs. There are good ones and there are pretty bad ones. Ladies and gentlemen, guess what happened? Acheampong set up a two-man committee to investigate the happenings within the Ghana Commercial Bank. In no time, one of them was ambushed in a part of Ghana, killed and burnt to death in his car. The other gentleman said no, he's not going to engage in this thing to be killed. A government, a military government, sets up a two-man committee to investigate those who had abused and exploited your Ghana Commercial Bank. Sorry, thank you. Had to pay with their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, Muntu Mugwasi. Mundier. The one who survived, believing in probity and accountability, joined the revolution and became one of our deputy governors at the Bank of Ghana. He finally had job satisfaction because integrity had returned to this country under that revolution. My prayer Asama mi kanu say how bad Nyama Boni Bear Wamuye with Ghana Commercial Bank Sika. Government person or Shwemu, Acheampong person investigate. Nesede, Wamu Ku investigators no. How fraudulent. Sir, akola kitu wanu story ya. Your friend will say, Adom Mochri, Atri Adom or something. No, or kika kwasi asem. Entrepreneurs. Next time, make take it time. Make Tremu as here say see private capital or capitalism, socialism no as here. Namube who how they've used in Africa no. Muka say yeah capitalism. America right across to Europe to Soviet Union, there is accountability. Africa says, yeah, capitalism. Shwanu ye. Nkronfon kwane. Rape. Thievery. Now what must see capitalism. You see socialism. Socialism to Christians, capitalists are here, Jesus Christ, who was a die-hard socialist. They made him their icon, son of God. And under that name, Juma Bonnie. Ladies and gentlemen, now me perceive me casa too much. Into my Me canning you now. Me canning you now. Me canning you now. Aha. Yes. You next time, wife. My prayer. Mercy. Sometimes politics, no, and it's not everything they talk about. Media, I talk about it. Maybe NPP will deny it. They intend to set up a national development bank. So National Development Bank, I bet, because they know the use to which Ghana Commercial Bank was put by a certain group of people in this country, being part and parcel of them, they monopolized it, kept quiet, and they have also decided, no, we will also establish, a national development bank under this leadership. My prayer is that if or when they do, that it will not go down serving the selfish interests of fraudulent entrepreneurs as the Ghana Commercial Bank did in those days. Now, but will rather serve the interests of deserving and genuine entrepreneurs all over this country, irrespective of whichever tribe you belong to. That is my prayer, my hope. Ladies and gentlemen, it is however unfortunate that some have chosen to siphon the negative, leaving out the overwhelming gains made by these interventions of the people. The two interventions, 1979 and 1981, were not about Rawlings. They were the effects of the mood of the country and the mood of the people. In telling the story, the context and the circumstances cannot be discounted or overlooked. An explosion of human rage in our history meant to teach us not to treat fellow human beings with disrespect. It's been distorted by persons who lack credibility. How, therefore, can we decline to the extent of losing our morality and sense of discernment in even appreciating and identifying people of value and integrity? How can we decline so badly that we cannot recognize merit even in our universities? Ladies and gentlemen, recently at a funeral service in the Volta region, I went down on my knee out of respect to Tagbiga Ado, the 8th Paramount Chief of Kliko, to seek permission to depart the ceremony ahead of time. Ladies and gentlemen, there were those who wondered who he was and why I had to kneel to him. If I believe Bedia Pellet, some of our fine singers and actresses, Chaka Zulus, what do you call that friend of mine? He's a preacher. Huh? Awale. Oh, that one in Tama. What's that one in Tama who he punches women's stomach? Eh? Oh, Billy. Eh? Tomboy. David is Tomboy. Money back the room. Obinim. If Obinim had arrived, or any one of these people, at that funeral service, we would have recognized who they are. Sadly, when a noble person, a custodian of the spirituality and the soul of the nation arrives and takes his dignified seat, not even the senior preachers, those pastors, recognize these noble souls. I felt so sad. I saw what happened as a reflection of what was going on in the country and has been going on for some time now. The extent to which we are and recognize what did I do? I chose the appropriate time and went to see that chief, and I knelt in his direction, knelt with him, put my hand on his knee, and I asked for his permission to leave. I wanted people to wonder who this noble man is. Ladies and gentlemen, what I found interesting that day, all the VIPs who would come in, or so-called VIPs, were being mentioned on the stage by the MC, the preachers, etc. And then, of course, they invited some young, handsome-looking preacher man in his black to come and preach the sermon. And as he approached the microphone, he beckoned to his interpreter, his translator, to join him. Then he started, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, la, 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 li, li, li. Me, I heard the voice, and I said, wow, this man has a fantastic voice, backed by his translator. Ah, so this is what I heard, and must decided you will be a preacher, a great preacher. And him, I guess, to become a priest, feeling good, good-looking, and confident. Except, of course, I think he didn't read enough, didn't have homework on the Bible, so that when he opens his mouth, he talks sense. He picked on Jesus Christ and the resurrection. This one sentence, and shouting, I couldn't take it anymore. I got up and went to the chief to go and ask for his permission to leave. If the people on the stage had enough in here I think he probably would have stopped and said, what? This man on his knee? For who? There must be somebody interesting amongst us. We have to find out who he is. If it was me, I would say, whoever you are, for JJ to go on his knee for you, we haven't seen him do this for any chief in this country. Well, I would like to invite you to share with us what wisdom lies in your heart, in your brain, for this man to go on his knee for you. That's the point I'm making. That chief came and sat down. Nobody knew who he was. And those who knew didn't think he was important enough to mention and announce him. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the custodians, I said, of the soul of this nation. Let's not toy with it. They don't carry an army to protect them. A good number of them don't have wealth. They have just their simple, honorable, dignified selves. That's why I used to say, maybe some of us politicians must go and live with them and learn one or two things about manners, about integrity from the ones with integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, me Casaduro. I'm saying that we have to wake up to our responsibilities as a people and give due respect to all deserving people, not only to people of high class, so-called high class, or those whose claim to respect is due to their wealth or elected officers. In the coming few weeks, I will engage our people and take us through our socio-political trajectory and unravel key historical antecedents that have shaped us as a people. Ladies and gentlemen, I intend to be brief, but it will be unfair to conclude without touching the case relating to social injustice and violation of the rights of some staff at the University of Education, Winneba, by the Abeka-led council. First of all, I commend the government for their prompt intervention by laying a roadmap for the peaceful resolution of the matter after I expressed my initial concerns. From the records of IOCO and other state agencies, the affected individuals were exonerated as there was no evidence of misconduct established against them. Ironically, the current Vice Chancellor, who was indicted in the same report, still remains at post. Notwithstanding the efforts of government towards immediate resolution, no significant progress has been made after more than 3 whole months. More than 20 dismissed staff at the UEW are going through discontent and pain. I hope this important matter is given the urgency and attention that it requires. Ladies and gentlemen, I also understand there are ongoing investigations regarding the current Vice Chancellor. It will be appropriate for the Council to request that he steps aside for fairness to prevail, as has been the practice with other similar circumstances in the past. We should not allow the distortions of our history to continue. Everyone here who claims to be an adherent of the decade that stopped the socio-political decay in our country must recognize the calculated efforts to destroy the legacy that we all laid. those who have allowed corruption to rear its ugly head and permitted it to fester, want to belittle the discipline, the law, and order we introduced into this country so they can justify their corrupt tendencies. Ladies and gentlemen, the lighting of the perpetual flame and the laying of wreaths is to show reverence to all who sacrificed their lives during that difficult time in our country. Let no one downplay those sacrifices through historical distortions, twists, and utter fabrications. I didn't understand the tweet that well, but I don't know if it was General Mosquito who was talking about something that could very well be worse than June 4th and 31st. Yes. The depth of corruption, of crime today is so heavy, so deep. But some of us would say, nothing can happen. If things happen like June 4th, an explosion, during that period, so many years ago, things are much worse, we're living with it. No, there's been tension. And I suppose it's also because the mass of our people, or corruption, has eaten so deep into the fabric of the masses of our country that it has taken away that purity, that strength that we used to find at the grassroots. But that should not fool us and anesthetize us into thinking that nothing can happen. And that is why we're supposed to be drawing lessons from that period. Queen Elizabeth and her monarchy are today in England as king and queen because they learned the lesson that happened to France. France used to have kings and queens as well, Russia, etc. But the revolt cleared them all. England did not wait because they used to have the same problems, the same kind of corruption and oppression. But when it happened next door, they learned their lesson and they began to reform, to transform their society, to raise the quality of justice and freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, in our case, we don't look up to France. We must look at our own history. We've tasted it before, and it could have been much worse if we had lost control. I will talk about some of these incidents a little more in the next few weeks. So let's not take these chances. Let's reduce. Let's stop doing fraudulent things. Let's fight against corruption. That fight in itself, no matter the difficult circumstances we may be going through, provides us with an air of stability because you can sense and smell, breathe justice. Justice in itself provides an air of stability. No matter the difficulties we may be going through. We've gone through it before. In '79, we went through it in the early 80s. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not treat fellow human beings with contempt. Let's not look down on fellow human beings. Let's treat one another with the necessary respect that we deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, let us remain strong and resolute and not allow anyone to tell our story. I thank you all for coming, and drive safely. I wish you a prosperous new year, and may God bless us all. Is Quincy Bush right here? I don't think so. Who's that, Quincy?
That was former President Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, and he was speaking at the commemoration of the 31st December Revolution at Winneba. And that's how we wrap Joy News today with me, Mapita CBD. Remember, you can go to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with Joy News on TV. Up next is the Joy Business Review.